Are you, fellas?
It's him.
The anomaly. Do we proceed? Yes, he is still
Only human.
upgrades.
Welcome everyone to another action figure review for my 1/12 scale collection, as today we're going to be doing something a bit different, moving away from the superhero genre, as we have a third-party unlicensed figure from PC Toys. And I think you can kind of guess from the packaging that this is based off the Matrix, as they have released another Neo figure. And this month, in fact, they gave us a Trinity as well, so stay tuned to my channel. I will also be looking to review that figure as well. But first, I want to take a look at the Neo 2.0, because in fact, they did give us the first version. And this was actually a pretty good figure. You can see that the packaging was a bit different. It has a nice artwork and also the name Neo at the top. For some reason they've changed up the packaging in this one. Maybe they just didn't have the time or wanted to cut down on the budget, and they gave us like a kind of just generic box, because the Trinity figure is exactly the same apart from the size and the number 25 on the Trinity. You can see that it just says Imperial Hackers, so obviously it is third party, so they can't use the official name. And it says follow the white rabbit, which is a quote from the film. So everything else is actually pretty basic, so we can get this out of its packaging and take a closer look. So I noticed the packaging on this PC Toys is very much like the so-called big companies nowadays, like Medicom and Bandai, where it's in a plastic clamshell. So before we take a look at the Neo figure itself, let's quickly go through all the accessories. So first, they've given us a stand, which is not something we always get in 1/12 scale figures. So this is a nice bonus, shall I say, for the likes of SH Figuarts or Mafex. We don't always get this type of stand. It is a generic one, so there's no patterns or titles on it, which is okay because you can use it for different figures if you want. Obviously this is based on Matrix Reloaded, the second film, so it includes the stick or baton that Neo uses to fight all the agents in the park. It's in like a greenish color. I'm not entirely sure how accurate that is, but it's used like a solid metal type of material, so it's not a plastic one where it'll be broken easily, so this is nice. And then we have some guns, not lots of guns like the first PC Toys. And from what I remember, I don't think Neo really used any guns in the second or third movie, so I'm not too sure why they've included it. And then we have the weapons that he uses in the Chateau fight, which was probably the most interesting or exciting fight in the second movie, at least from me. And this is the Psy weapons, which he takes off the wall. And this is probably the best weapon that he used in that scene, so I'm glad they included it. And then we obviously have the pair of sunglasses, which was also included in the first PC Toys, so this is very important for Neo. Includes 4 sets of different hands, so plenty of posing for this Neo, and I will go through all of them with the figure later on. So that's all the accessories, and now we can take a closer look at the Neo figure. So here is the Neo 2.0 from PC Toys, and first things first, before I begin, I want to say I'm super glad that someone has finally given us a modern day fully articulated Matrix line. I know PC Toys isn't fully licensed for this kind of product, but we know that we haven't had any 1/12 scale Matrix figures for almost 20 years now, and the last ones were McFarlane Toys and N2 Toys. I have some of those in my collection, but we know those are kind of outdated now, so super happy that we have like another Neo figure. And it's always been in my top 10 in terms of favorite movies, the first one, but I've liked Neo's look in the sequels. As you can see, it's a more clean type of look, more simple with the long robe, and very different from the first film. Obviously the first one had the casual jacket, a lot of belts, lots of guns attached to it, and I believe the costume designer wanted Neo to be a more superhuman type of look, where he became a godlike figure, a more stature, and I believe she said that this is heavily based on ancient Chinese robes, so you can see from the long jacket. And obviously the Matrix is heavily influenced from the martial arts, and I think first look I'm actually pretty happy with it. It does look like Keanu Reeves, I would say, and in terms of the proportions, it looks alright. Obviously it's pretty simple as a figure on its own, but I guess in the film he didn't really need to look any other way. And yeah, I'm super happy in terms of the first impressions. I noticed that he has bands on the jacket, which is kind of like what we see with the figures with the capes. It gives it that flowy look. Neo obviously in flying poses as well in the film, so this is a nice touch. Everything else is all cloth material, which is what we get for unlicensed products nowadays, apart from the shoes. And I noticed that for the jacket, the buttons are more visible than the actual film. I believe in the film it was a lot darker, so you couldn't really see it, but this one kind of has like a shinier look. Maybe they could have toned it down in terms of the color. And then we have the face sculpt, which is probably the most important thing. The first PC toys, which I'll compare later, was actually a pretty accurate look of Keanu Reeves, and I'll probably say the same for this one. About 85 to 90% it looks like him, so I'm actually pretty happy with this face sculpt. And it still has the sunglasses, which will add on, and it'll probably make him look even more like Neo. I'm not too sure in terms of third-party products how well their technology is in terms of the face scanning and sculpting technique, but I'm actually pretty happy with the first impressions. So for the movement of Neo, I think he looks pretty good just like this, but obviously he's going to be in a lot more poses for his fights and flying poses. So the head sculpt is going to tilt side to side, no problem, and it should be able to go all the way around if you want. And it does have a tilt forwards, I guess slightly, and then backwards or upwards should I say, a little bit, which could be used for the flight poses. And then for the arms, I'm going to be a bit more careful because we know that cloth material is very different from generic plastic figures, so I don't want to break anything. It can go side to side, and then forwards, you can see, and then backwards. Just be very careful, you don't want to rip any of the clothes. And then we can do a swivel, but it is a little bit limited because of the jacket inside, and it's the same on the other one. And then we have some sort of movement on the hands, which is the hinge side to side, and it should be able to go round and round. And then for the body, so it's a long jacket, so not too sure how this is going to work, but you can tilt side to side with the jacket, sideways not so much, although you can feel the movement inside. Body crunch forwards a little bit, and then backwards a little bit as well. So just being very careful with it, but you can see that it does have that articulation. And then for the legs, move the jacket back, you can kick forwards and then backwards slightly, and then it does do the splits, I guess. You know, it does need to do some jumping poses. And then the legs don't really twist. I believe there is articulation, but I don't want to rip the trousers. So you can see that there is a thigh swivel, as well. Also the legs do turn slightly, and then obviously for the shoes they turn. There's a hinge, and then side to side as well. So articulation wise, I think you just need to take your time over it, and then you can get this figure in some very cool poses. So we're going to test out the first accessory, which is going to be his trademark sunglasses. Before we put them on, I just want to quickly compare the first Neo PC toys, and I would say that this second one, the lightness is even better. The first one is good, but I actually prefer this one, so they definitely made improvements. So I'm going to put on the sunglasses, which is a very small plastic piece. Be very delicate, you don't want to break it or lose it. By the looks of things, it is the same sunglasses they used in the first PC toys. So even if you lose one, I guess you can have another one. Well, obviously you won't have both Neos wearing the sunglasses, but I believe this upgrades the Neo figure even more. So yeah, I do like it like this. I'll probably use it as my main pose, my main display, and the lightness is even better. So here is the first set of alternative hands, and I think this looks amazing because this is obviously from that iconic scene in the Chateau fight when Neo stops all the bullets. And you can see that he has it on both hands. I think one is enough, but this is a great addition and probably my favorite out of all of them, at least from what I'm seeing. This is the perfect Neo look, so I'm super happy with it. And he could even use his hands for certain other poses, I believe, when he's about to fly off or something. But this is the look that you need to have Neo in when he stops the bullets. Just one thing I noticed before we go on to the other alternative hands is the stopping of the bullets includes the peg. So as you can see here. So on the original hand, you have to pull it out because the other alternative hands, for example this one, doesn't have a peg. So on the original Neo, you have to pull it out with the peg to put on the stopping of the bullets one. And then the other ones, you're going to have to kind of pull this one back out and pull it on the other ones. For some reason they did it, which is quite inconvenient because you have to kind of do it and it takes a bit of time. So that's just one thing I noticed. And the second set of alternative hands is this Kung Fu pose, as you can see with the kind of hand gestures. And this is a very unique look of Neo. You can see that the fingers are twisted in. It's not every day you see figures like this. And this is purposely done, obviously, for this figure. And I think alongside the flowing of the jacket, this is a trademark look of Neo, obviously. And I'm just as impressed as the first one. So this is almost the perfect look for Neo. And I really like it. The only thing is they didn't include any pegs for this one. So you have to kind of take your time over taking it off the first one and then putting it back in. So that was the only disappointing thing. But apart from that, the actual hands, I think this is almost the perfect Neo look. And the first set of alternative hands is to hold on to the weapons, both the size and the stick. So first you can see this is from the Chateau fight, which is probably my favorite in the Matrix Reloaded. And as you can see, this is the weapon that he used. He took off the wall, and it's probably the best weapon that he used in that fight scene. So I'm glad they've included it. And you can do many different poses with this, obviously. And here it is to hold on to the baton or stick, whatever you want to call it. And this is another iconic moment in the movie Matrix Reloaded when he takes on the hundreds of Agent Smiths. And I did say that it's a metal solid piece, so it doesn't break easily. But on the downside, it can feel heavy at times, so it does take a bit of time to get it in the right pose. So it doesn't swing or flow as well as it's like if it's a very light type of weapon. So it's a solid piece, but it's a bit heavy, so you just got to take your time over the posing. And the final set of alternative hands are the trigger hands, which is obviously for the guns. We know in the first Matrix, Neo was associated with lots of guns. But from what I remember, he didn't use any in the sequels, so I'm not too sure why they've included it. It's a nice bonus, an extra option for posing for those who just want a generic Neo figure and they didn't get their hands on the first one, so maybe that's why they've included it. They are quite detailed. They may even be the ones that Morpheus used in the second film, but I would have preferred if they had other weapons that he used in the Chateau rather than these guns. But this is just an extra bonus, maybe for those who just want guns for Neo. And here I've made use of the final accessory, which is the stand. And I have Neo in a flying pose here, which obviously is a memorable scene in the film. And I know that a lot of people would prefer to have a stand just to give you this option. But for me personally, I think Neo can do many different dynamic poses even without it, apart from the flying pose, obviously. So for me, it's just a bonus and I don't have to have it. So now for some size comparisons, starting off with the first PC Toys Neo figure. And this is kind of personal preference. If you like the first movie, it's more iconic, a lot more guns, then the first figure is for you. I prefer the second look of Neo. It just has a more cleaner look. But if you're a fan of Matrix, I believe you should have both of these figures. So here it is next to some more Matrix figures in my collection with the N2 toys Trinity and Morpheus. And here it is next to some McFarlane toys with the Matrix sequel lines with Agent Smith and Morpheus. And I know that they did lack articulation at that time, but I do really like the sculpts, especially that Morpheus figure, which is one of my favorites. And here it is next to some of my go-to 1/12 scale companies out there. In my opinion, probably the best on the market at the moment. And that is the Tamashinations SH Figure Arts with the Batman and the Medicom Mafex Justice League Bruce Wayne. And here it is next to a couple of martial artists from the Hasbro Marvel Legends line with Shang-Chi from Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings and Wong from Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And here I've thrown in a couple of the Hasbro Star Wars figures with Krira and Chirrut. Keanu Reeves kind of started off his martial arts career from the first Matrix movie, and of course next year in the John Wick film he's going to be meeting one of the best out there in Donnie Yen, so I can't wait for that. And in case you're wondering, next to some of the larger scale companies like the McFarlane Toys Penguin and the Diamond Select John Wick figure, you can see it's a lot smaller. And here it is rounding off next to some other Neo figures I've had in the past, with the N2 Toys Neo from the first Matrix on the left and the McFarlane Toys Neo from the first Matrix on the right. Before I give you my final thoughts, I wanted to quickly show you the Diorama Playset from McFarlane Toys based on the Matrix Reloaded. This is the staircase from the scene of the Chateau fight, and I've decided obviously to put this Neo figure inside, and I think it matches really well. And this set is definitely worth picking up. Even if you're not a fan of the Matrix, I think you can use it for other figures. You can see that there's weapons on the side which you can take off. They didn't include the size, so it's really great that PC Toys have included it for this one. I did do a full unboxing and review of it, so I will put the link in the description below. But you can see kind of an overview shot of what it looks like. And this figure did include a Neo, albeit a statue. He's in a flying kick pose. And that was pretty much it. They also released a Matrix Revolutions Neo in the same kind of clothings, but you can see that the likeness isn't quite there and it's more or less a statue. So this PC Toys figure is definitely worth picking up. So now for my final thoughts on Imperial Hackers, the Neo figure by PC Toys based on the Matrix sequels. Firstly, I'm going to say, just like the first figure, finally we have a fully articulated modern day Matrix line, albeit it is unlicensed, but it's been a while, almost 20 years since we had those McFarlane and N2 toys. So bonus points just to have a Neo figure in 2022. Now obviously we're going to have to focus on the lightness, the proportions, the accessories, and I think overall I'm satisfied with what they've given us. The lightness, I would say, is just as good as the first PC Toys Neo, maybe even better. And then obviously we have the proportions, the nice materials on the clothes, and then we have the articulation with the band in the jacket. And then obviously we have all the accessories for his iconic poses. The stopping of the bullets, martial arts pose, ones to hold on to his weapons. And then we have the stick, which obviously used to fight all the agents. And then we also have the guns. Although this one is the only thing. I wish they included more weapons from the Chateau, since I don't think Neo used any guns in the sequels. Now in terms of just some things they could improve on, the hands. They included pegs on the stopping of the bullets one. And they included it in the standard one. But then for the other hands, they didn't have one. So you have to change it up. And it is a bit of a hassle, and sometimes they get stuck in the hand and it takes a bit of time, which I think they either should have included all the pegs for all the hands or just included just one set of pegs so it's easier to change them. One other thing is the buttons on the jacket seems a bit too visible. If I could change it, I would have it much darker, just like the film. Other than that, I think very satisfied with this Neo figure, and I'm going to give it a 8.5 out of 10. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and of course you can comment what your thoughts are about this figure. And also check out the links in the description below, as I also did the unboxing of the Chateau Diorama. And of course stay tuned for more videos before the end of the year. Thanks for watching and hope to see you very soon.